At 3:12 a.m., someone knocked on my door and whispered my full name. It's been 2 years since that night, and I still haven't returned to the cabin. I left everything behind. My tools, my clothes, my books. Even my old dog's collar still sits on the hook by the front door. I couldn't bring myself to go back, not even in daylight, not even with other people. What happened there broke something inside me, something quiet, something I used to trust. It began on a Monday night, October, cold but not yet freezing. The trees had started to shed their leaves, and the sky had that deep grey shade. I was living alone back then, up in the mountains of Washington. My nearest neighbor was over a mile away. You had to hike uphill to even see my mailbox. It was perfect for someone like me. I liked the quiet. I liked the space. And I liked knowing that if someone knocked on my door, they damn well meant to be there. That night, I had made a fire and settled in with a book. No television, no music. Just the sounds of the forest and the occasional pop from the fireplace. It was just after 3 in the morning when it happened. I had nodded off in my chair, still dressed, still holding the book in my hand. The storm had started while I slept. Rain hit the tin roof hard. The wind shoved against the windows like it wanted to be let in. Then came the knock. It wasn't loud, it wasn't urgent, but it was clear. 3 short, measured knocks on the front door. I opened my eyes and sat up. My brain was still foggy from sleep, but the sound had been too real to ignore. I listened. Just the rain. I stood up slowly, my bare feet touching the cold floor. I moved toward the front door, careful not to step on the one board that creaked in the hallway. My hand hovered near the knob, but I didn't open it. I leaned in, listening. Then I heard it again. Low. A little harder this time. Not frantic, not aggressive, but with weight behind them. Like whoever was out there knew I was listening. I stepped back. My heartbeat quickened. I looked out the side window. The porch was dark. The storm had knocked out the power to the floodlight days ago, and I hadn't bothered fixing it. There was no one there. I told myself it was probably an animal. Maybe a tree branch. I returned to the living room and turned on the flashlight I kept by the couch. I was halfway through calming myself down when I heard the voice. It came from the other side of the front door, low and clear, like a whisper trying to pretend it wasn't a whisper. Evan. That's my name. No one else calls me that anymore. Not since my dad died. My friends call me Van. My co-workers call me nothing now. I left that part of my life behind when I moved here. I stood frozen. My flashlight beam hovered over the couch. I turned toward the door again. Evan. The second time it said my name, it sounded amused, like it was enjoying itself, like it knew me. I moved slowly back to the window. Still, nothing outside. The porch was empty. No shape. Just wind and rain. I stepped away from the window and went to the kitchen. I grabbed the hunting knife I kept in the drawer. My phone had no signal. That wasn't unusual in storms, but the timing couldn't have been worse. The voice came again. Evan this time. It wasn't at the front door. It was at the back. I turned around. My heart pounded so hard, I could hear it in my ears. The back door had a small window, barely big enough to see through. I approached slowly. There was a moment just before I looked out, when I knew something was going to be there. I could feel it in the air. That tight, heavy pressure, right before lightning strikes. I looked out. Nothing. The trees swayed, and the wind howled through the branches. But there was no one at the door. I backed away again. This time, I locked the front and back doors. I checked every window, every latch. I turned off the flashlight and sat in the corner of the room where I could see both doors. I waited. For nearly 20 minutes. There was nothing. Then I heard something that I still hear sometimes in dreams. Breathing. Not the wind. It was wet and steady, like someone with a cold standing just behind me. I turned slowly toward the hallway that led to my bedroom. There was no one there, but on the wooden floor, in the center of the hallway, was a footprint, facing toward me. I moved closer and stopped when I saw the second one. Another footprint, this time halfway between the first one and the kitchen. It hadn't been there before. Something was moving in the house. I didn't speak. I didn't call out. I didn't threaten. I just waited, and then I saw it. A figure in the dark, at the end of the hallway, too tall, too thin. The head tilted slightly, as if it were curious. I stepped back. The shape didn't move. Then the lights flickered, and for a moment, in that quick pulse of electricity before everything went dark, it was pale, wide-eyed, lips stretched into a smile that didn't match anything human. It didn't just know my name. It knew me. The lights went out. The shape was gone. I ran. I didn't grab a coat. I didn't put on shoes. I ran through the rain and into the trees. Branches cut my arms and legs. The cold stung my skin. I didn't stop until I saw the red roof of the ranger station through the trees. They didn't believe me. Not really. They found the cabin empty, locked from the inside. No signs of forced entry. No footprints in the mud outside. But inside, the wooden floor was wet, and in the hallway, there were 7 footprints. All bare, all facing different directions. I never went back. But sometimes, I dream about it. The voice that knew my name and said it like it had been waiting a very long time to use it. I was standing in my kitchen when I saw a face in the basement window. The problem is, that window is underground. I moved into that house after my divorce. It was quiet, small, tucked in the woods, just outside of a place to restart. A place no one could bother me. The house had a finished basement with a separate entrance. The real estate agent had mentioned it was once used as a guest suite, but I had no intention of going down there. Something about that lower level made me uncomfortable. The air felt heavier near the stairs, like it remembered something I didn't know. The window in the basement was strange. It wasn't a proper window. It sat below the ground level, surrounded by a little concrete well, so only dirt and leaves were visible through it. You'd have to crawl to reach it. There was no path. No reason anyone should ever be near it. But that night, someone was. It was around 9:40 p.m. I had just made tea and walked into the kitchen. My eyes drifted to the dark glass of the back door. Then they caught something lower. Movement. Stillness. I couldn't tell which at first. I stepped closer. That's when I saw the face. Eyes wide open, mouth slightly parted. Staring upward, my entire body went cold. I didn't move. I couldn't blink. The figure didn't flinch, just watched. I turned off the kitchen light, stepped back into the hallway, and dialed 911 with shaking hands. The dispatcher stayed on the line while I waited. I didn't dare look again. When the police arrived, they searched the area around the house. No footprints, no sign of forced entry, and no one in the basement, but the dust on the window well had been disturbed. Leaves had been swept to the side. Something had definitely been there. The officers told me it was probably a prank, a trespasser, someone passing through. But that didn't explain how the man had reached that window. There's no way to climb into the well without leaving a mark, and the soil was soft from the recent rain. The next morning, I inspected the area myself. I saw the smear on the glass where the face had pressed. A perfect oval of condensation. Inside the basement, the air was worse than I remembered. Thick, sour. Still, I stood in the center of the room and listened. Nothing, but as I turned to leave, I heard it. Faint. Barely a whisper. Come back. I ran up the stairs, slammed the basement door, and locked it. A week later, I covered the basement window with bricks. But some nights, when it rains and the wind dies down, slow, measured, like fingernails brushing glass from the inside. The hallway light would flicker every time I walked past it, but it only went completely dark when I stood still. I never liked that apartment. I told myself I did when I moved in. But deep down, I knew something felt wrong from the first night. I told my friends it was quiet, that I needed a place where I could focus on work, that I needed to reset my life. All of that was true. But the truth has layers, and beneath all those reasons was something I didn't want to admit. I chose that apartment because it felt empty, emotionally empty, like no one had ever truly lived there, and I thought I needed that. A blank space to start over. The building was old, 3 stories tall, brick exterior faded by time and weather. Inside, the hallways were narrow, dimly lit, and always just a little too quiet. The elevator creaked when it moved. The pipes made sounds. like distant sighs, and the floorboards in the stairwell never stopped shifting, even when no one walked on them. My apartment was on the 3rd floor. Unit 3, end of the hall, right beneath a flickering light that buzzed constantly like it had something to say, but didn't know how to say it. The landlord said it was just a wiring issue, nothing to worry about. I asked them to fix it twice. The first few nights were uneventful. I unpacked slowly, worked during the day, cooked simple meals, stared out the window longer than I probably should have. The view wasn't anything special, just a line of rooftops and the top edge of a grey sky. But I liked the stillness. Then the hallway light started doing more than flicker. It would go out, not every night, just sometimes. At first I thought it was just part of the wiring issue, but then I noticed a pattern. The light would only go out when I stood in front of my door for more than a few seconds. If I paused to check my bag or look for keys, the light above me would blink once, but when I walked quickly past it, it would only flicker. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the vibration of my footsteps was affecting the loose connection. Maybe the cold air from the stairwell was messing with the current. Then one night, it didn't come back on. I had just gotten home from work. It was late, close to midnight. I reached the top of the stairs and turned down the hall. The other lights were on. A dull yellow glow lit the way, but the bulb above my door was dark. Completely dark. I stopped walking, looked up. No flicker, no sound, just dead silence. The air near my door was colder, noticeably colder, as if I had stepped into a pocket of winter that hadn't touched the rest of the building. I unlocked the door quickly and stepped inside, closed it behind me. I stood in the entryway and listened. Nothing. I told myself it was just a building, old insulation, flawed heating, maybe a vent issue. But then I started seeing things, not clearly. Not all at once, just little movements in the corner of my eye. A shadow shifting in the hallway behind me. A shape in the reflection of the microwave door that didn't match mine. The faint sense that something was standing just outside the bathroom while I brushed my teeth. It wasn't every night, but it was enough to make me leave the hallway light on inside my apartment. I never used to do that. I liked it dark when I slept. Now I couldn't close my eyes without thinking about what might be waiting on the other side of the wall. Then came the knocking. Soft. Deliberate at first. I thought it was from one of the neighbors. But no one lived in the unit next to mine, and the walls were thick. The knocking happened around the same time every night. Just after 1 in the morning. 3 knocks. Always 3. Evenly spaced. 1, 2, 3. I would sit up in bed and stare at the hallway door. The sound came from the other side. Not loud. Just patient. I never opened the door. I never spoke. I just waited for it to stop. It always did. But then, one night, it came earlier. I was watching TV around 9:30 when the hallway light inside my apartment flickered. Not the one outside, the one above my couch. Then the knock came. Same rhythm, Same weight. Sat perfectly still. The knock came again. Louder this time, as if whatever was knocking wanted to make sure I knew it was no longer waiting for the right time. I stood and walked to the door. I didn't open it. I just stood there, breathing shallowly. Then I looked through the peephole. There was nothing, just the empty hallway, and that dead bulb above my door. Then something stepped into view. A shadow, not cast, not implied. It walked into the frame like a person stepping onto a stage. Tall. Thin dot head tilted. No features, no face. Just a dark outline where a person should be. It stood there, facing the door. Not moving, not speaking. I backed away slowly. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I checked the hallway. No sign of anyone. No neighbors had heard anything. He said there were no cameras in the hallways. No way to check if someone had been there. I thought about leaving. I even started packing. But then the knocking stopped. Days passed. Then a week. Nothing happened. I started to believe it was over. Until I found the note. It was slipped under my door. A small sheet of paper, folded once. No name, no envelope. Inside was a single sentence. Keep still so I can see you better. I moved out the next day. And even now, wherever I live, I check every hallway. I avoid apartments with flickering lights. I never stop walking near doorways, because I know it's still out there, waiting, watching, moving only when I don't. I passed her once in the rain, then again, 2 miles later. Same dress, same face, same blank stare. The rain had been coming down hard for hours. The kind of rain that soaked the trees from the inside out and made the ground feel like it was breathing beneath your tires. I had left my sister's place later than I should have. She lived on the edge of a small mountain town that barely had cell service. I had driven the route many times before. I knew it well. Every curve, every dip in the asphalt, every old wooden sign leaning just a little too far to the side. It was close to midnight when I turned onto the last stretch of road. A narrow, unlit two-lane that cut through the forest like a scar. Tall trees loomed on either side, their branches swaying under the weight of the rain. My headlights fought against the darkness, carving out just enough space for me to see 10. The windshield wipers moved back and forth in a frantic rhythm, unable to keep up. I had always liked driving at night, especially in the rain. The world felt quieter. The noise of the city disappeared behind me. It was just me and the road. That's why I noticed her. She stood on the side of the road just beyond the curve, right at the edge of the guardrail. Her white dress clung to her body, soaked through and plastered to her skin. She wasn't holding her thumb out. She wasn't waving. She wasn't crying. She was just standing there, still, silent. I slowed down out of instinct, not stopping, but easing up on the gas. My eyes locked onto her as I passed. She didn't look at me. She stared straight ahead, unblinking, as if she couldn't see the road or the rain or my headlights. I kept driving. Something about her unsettled me. The way she stood, the way her dress hung off her like it had been worn for days, the way she didn't move even an inch as a car passed feet away. I looked at the clock on the dashboard. It was 12:07 a.m. I thought about turning around. I even touched the turn signal lever, but something in my gut said no. You don't go back for someone who doesn't ask for help. 10 minutes passed. I kept my eyes on the road. I tried to shake the image from my mind. She was probably just stranded, maybe drunk, maybe in shock. Someone else would find her, someone closer to town. Then I saw her again. Same dress, same hair, same position, same blank stare. She was standing on the side of the road, this time on the left, the opposite shoulder. No car could have passed me going the other way. I hadn't seen another pair of headlights for half an hour. There were no turn dash-offs, no loops, just a single, continuous stretch of road. My foot hit the brake, and I slowed almost to a stop. My mind scrambled to explain what I was seeing. It couldn't be the same woman. It had to be a coincidence. Someone else in a similar dress. Someone else with the same hair. But no, it was her. I was sure of it. I didn't stop. I kept driving, this time a little faster. The rain seemed heavier now. My hands gripped the wheel harder. Every muscle in my shoulders tightened. I looked in the rearview mirror, but the road behind me was empty. Black. Endless. I turned off the music. I wanted to hear the world again. The tires on the wet pavement. The hum of the engine. The sound of my own breath. 20 minutes later, this time she was standing in the middle of the road. My headlights hit her like a spotlight. Her skin looked paler now, almost grey. Her arms hung at her sides. Her feet were bare, toes pressed into the wet asphalt. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded but stopped, just a few feet in front of her. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. She just stared into the windshield as if she could see me, but didn't care. I couldn't move. I sat there with my hands frozen on the wheel, waiting for her to do something. She stood there for maybe 20 seconds. Maybe an hour. Time bent around her like the rain. Then she stepped backward into the dark. 1 step, 2 steps. Gone. I drove forward slowly, my heart pounding in my throat. The area where she had stood was empty. I passed it, and then I passed it again. And again. I drove for another 20 minutes, but the road wouldn't end. Every curve looked the same. Every tree, every mile. And then I saw her again. Only this time, she wasn't on the side of the road. She was in the back seat. I didn't hear her get in. I didn't see the doors open, but I saw her face reflected in the rearview mirror. She was behind me, her head tilted, her eyes fixed on mine. Her mouth opened slowly, but she didn't speak. She just breathed, and then the car engine died. The lights went out. The only sound was the rain on the roof and the breath behind my ear. I woke up in the driver's seat hours later, alone, parked on the shoulder. There were no footprints outside the car, but there were handprints on the windows, all facing inward. I turned the key. The engine started like nothing had happened. The road was clear. I drove home. I moved a week later, and now I never drive at night. Not because I'm scared of the dark, but because I know she's still out there, waiting for another car, waiting for someone who doesn't believe in the impossible, waiting for someone who will pass her once, then again, until the road no longer ends.